It started as a tiny online store and became the world's most downloaded shopping app. But behind SHEIN's cheap dresses lies a story they don't want you to hear. In 2008, few outside of China had even heard the name SHEIN. It wasn't in malls. It didn't have glossy billboards. It was simply a small e-commerce business selling wedding dresses online. But over the next decade, it transformed into the most powerful fast fashion empire on earth. A brand moving faster than Zara, cheaper than H&M, and more addictive than TikTok. By 2020, SHEIN wasn't just selling clothes. It was selling an idea that anyone, anywhere could buy the latest trend in days for less than the cost of lunch. The numbers were staggering. Tens of thousands of new designs uploaded every week. Over 150 million active users across more than 150 countries. And profits soaring into the billions. Its secret weapon, a supply chain unlike anything the fashion world had ever seen, powered by real-time data, rapid manufacturing, and a ruthless focus on speed. If a celebrity wore a new dress today, SHEIN could have a copy online in 48 hours. If a TikTok trend went viral, SHEIN could turn it into a bestseller before the week was over. The world called it innovation. SHEIN called it efficiency. But as the brand exploded into global dominance, whispers began to surface. Whispers about where these clothes were really coming from, about how they could be made so fast, so cheap. And soon, those whispers would grow too loud to ignore. The glossy ads show smiling models, pastel colors, and prices so low they feel like a joke. But behind the endless scrolling and add to cart button lies a cost you'll never see on a price tag. The human cost. Investigations began surfacing, quiet at first, then louder, painting a darker picture of SHEIN's miracle supply chain. Clothes weren't just cheap because of efficiency, they were cheap because someone else was paying the price. Reports claimed factory workers in Guangzhou and other Chinese cities were earning as little as $556 a month, sewing hundreds of garments a day in cramped, unsafe spaces. Some shifts lasted 14 hours. Days off, rare. Overtime pay, almost non-existent. And the environmental cost, even worse. SHEIN's throwaway fashion model meant constant new production, constant waste, and a constant stream of synthetic fabrics, many derived from fossil fuels, filling landfills and polluting waterways. It wasn't just about overproduction, it was about overconsumption. Because the faster the trends turned over, the faster old clothes became trash. And for SHEIN, that was part of the plan. The system thrived on impulse buying. The $5 top you didn't need, the $12 dress you wore once for a photo, and then replaced the next month with something new. It was a cycle perfectly engineered to keep customers hooked, and to keep the factories running at full speed. But while consumers scrolled through endless deals, critics were beginning to ask a dangerous question. If SHEIN's prices are this low, and its profits are this high, what exactly are they hiding? As SHEIN's growth hit hyperspeed, its public image depended on one thing: staying invisible. No flagship stores, no high-profile CEOs doing press tours, just a faceless shopping app pumping out endless deals. But when journalists and watchdog groups started digging, what they found was a maze of shell companies, subcontractors, and legal loopholes designed to keep SHEIN's operations in the shadows. In the US, SHEIN avoided millions in import taxes by exploiting the de minimis trade loophole, shipping products individually to customers so each fell under the taxable threshold. It was perfectly legal and perfectly profitable. Meanwhile, the brand's headquarters in China kept its leadership deliberately low profile. Most consumers couldn't name a single SHEIN executive, and that was intentional, because a brand without a visible leader is a brand without an easy target. Then came the allegations of design theft. Independent artists and small clothing brands began posting side-by-side images, original designs next to SHEIN's copies. Same patterns, same cuts, just cheaper, faster, and mass-produced. When accused, SHEIN's responses were vague at best, calling them coincidences or inspired designs. But for the designers, it wasn't inspiration, it was theft. And for customers, it was a peek behind the curtain at how the brand truly operated. The picture was becoming clearer. SHEIN wasn't just disrupting fashion, it was rewriting the rules in a way that skirted accountability at every turn. But if the company thought it could grow unchecked forever, It was about to learn the cost of being too big to hide. It started with whispers on Twitter and TikTok, angry posts from artists, frustrated customers, and sustainability advocates. But soon, the criticism became impossible to scroll past. Influencers who once praised SHEIN's hauls began publicly quitting brand deals, citing concerns over labor exploitation and environmental harm. Hashtags like #SHEIN exposed and boycott SHEIN began trending, turning what was once a viral marketing machine into a PR minefield. In 2022, US lawmakers took notice. A congressional report questioned whether SHEIN's supply chain used forced labor from China's Xinjiang region, a serious allegation tied to global human rights violations. SHEIN denied the claims, but the scrutiny didn't fade. It deepened. Lawsuits followed. Independent designers sued for copyright infringement. Environmental groups called for investigations into SHEIN's waste and emissions. Customs officials began eyeing the brand's import loopholes, hinting at future regulation. And then came the turning point. A damning documentary aired in the UK, featuring undercover footage from inside SHEIN's supplier factories. The images were raw, rows of exhausted workers, cramped conditions, and endless piles of fabric scraps destined for the trash. For many loyal customers, it was the first time they saw the human faces behind the $7 dresses. And once seen, it couldn't be unseen. Sales didn't collapse overnight. Fast fashion rarely dies that quickly, but the brand's shine was fading. The conversation had shifted from "look at this amazing deal" to "what's the real cost of this shirt?" And for a company built on impulse, doubt was the most dangerous product of all. On paper, SHEIN still looks unstoppable. Billions in annual revenue, a global customer base, and the ability to flood the market with new designs in record time. But in reality, the brand is fighting battles on multiple fronts. Governments are closing the loopholes that once gave SHEIN an edge. The US is debating restrictions on the de minimis import rule. The EU is tightening sustainability regulations that could force fast fashion giants to slow down or pay more. Consumer trust, once SHEIN's greatest asset, is now a question mark. Many shoppers haven't deleted the app, but they've started looking at tags, reading articles, and hesitating before checkout. That hesitation, multiplied by millions, can shift an empire's trajectory. SHEIN is trying to respond. It's launched eco-friendly collections, pledged transparency, and open pop-up stores to connect with customers in person. But critics call it greenwashing, surface-level PR moves that don't address the deeper problems in its business model. Because SHEIN's power doesn't come from sustainable growth, it comes from constant growth. And the moment the machine slows down, even slightly, the cracks will widen. The question isn't whether SHEIN can survive the storm. The question is whether it can survive without being the SHEIN the world knows today. Fast, cheap, and everywhere. If it can't, then the empire that rose from nowhere in just over a decade might be forced to confront the very truth it has avoided all along. SHEIN's story is the ultimate tale of modern business. A brand that rose from obscurity to dominate a global industry, not by building something new, but by making everything faster and cheaper than anyone else. It tapped into our hunger for trends, our need for convenience, and our love of a bargain, but every bargain has a price. And in SHEIN's case, that price may be paid by workers in hidden factories, by rivers polluted with dye, and by small designers whose ideas vanish into mass production. For over a decade, SHEIN's strength was invisibility. Now the world is watching, and the billion-dollar question is, can it change without destroying the very model that made it rich? Or will the storm of lawsuits, investigations, and consumer backlash finally slow the machine? What do you think? Can SHEIN reinvent itself, or is this the beginning of its fall? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the rise and fall of global business empires, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out our next documentary, because behind every success story, there's a side they don't want you to see.